I want to say this up front on a sincere note. I hate what's going on, but I have 3 children, American children, that come home and tell me every week they practice for gun safety to figure out if there's someone going in their class, what they're supposed to do if there's a mass shooting going on, how do they protect themselves. It is absolutely insane. And I hate it. It's a big topic. And we're kind of like, I remember when we started this episode, I said to Ross, no, we're going to have fun on this episode. This is going to be, and we just turned around and fucked it up. But, it's quite a massive topic right now. And we're a business podcast. I mean, the government makes money, people are making money, stock trading. I think this is a huge topic, and we'll change it in a second. But I want to tell you guys, if there's anyone out there, over 30,000 people who might listen to this show, might possibly, if you're thinking about creating a business, tracking system for guns, man. Take it to your government, take it to your senators. I bet you make a killing doing it. It's a cash cow. Moving on, I think it's a good time to bring in our guest, Justin Schenck.
Hey everybody, so Justin has just joined us, so super excited. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. So Justin Schenck, everybody, or Schenck, basically Inc.com said that he was one of the top 8 podcasts to follow in 2018, and at one point he had the number 4 podcast in the world for self-help. So super excited for Justin to come on today. So yeah, Justin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Like, you introducing me sounds so much fancier than anybody here in America. So I'm just going to take you with me wherever I go, and you can introduce me to every stage across the country. I think that would be amazing.
Man, I'm happy to do that. I was watching A Knight's Tale the other week, and it's basically that. I don't know, random segue, but the guy that does the intro for him, he just wouldn't shut the fuck up, and I was like, perfect, I'm going to do that.
No, man, it was good. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, guys. Like, you guys are doing some cool stuff here, and I know you guys just started, but it seems like it's going really well, so it's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. So, Rob, if you want to lead us in, we can basically get things up and running.
Yeah, so here's the deal. We created this podcast, and we said we are going to get the best of the best, of the best to come on, and we want to talk to them, right? So when Russ brought me your profile, I looked at it and was like, oh, man, this guy knows his stuff. And when I say knows his stuff, I delved deep enough into your profile to be dangerous, but I'd like you to take me through your journey a little bit. There's some people that are going to find you here through our page and find you on our radio show that don't really, this is going to be the first introduction to you, and it's all about you, right? We wanted you on for a reason. The floor is yours. Take me back to when you were born. No, take me back to when you first, when it first clicked in your head that, shit, this is going well for me. This is something. And what was you doing at the time that happened?
Yeah, dude. So, I mean, when I realized it was going well for me, it actually wasn't that long ago. Like, I got into podcasting 2 years ago. I had a co-host at the time when we launched, and for the first 62 episodes, it was me and another guy, and we were doing horribly. Nobody was really tuning in, but we kept doing it because we were enjoying the conversations. We were learning. We were talking to amazing people, but it just wasn't growing. The audience just wasn't there. I actually ended up asking him to take a step back. He's still one of my best friends, by the way. We don't hate each other. It worked out really well. I asked him to take a step back, and I actually just relaunched like a season 2 type of thing with the Growth Now movement just back in September. And since then, it's skyrocketed. Awesome. And everything started to click. And I relaunched, and 2 weeks after I relaunched, I got my first huge speaking engagement. Before then, I was doing spots here and there, like a couple $100, making whatever here and there. But 2 weeks afterwards, I got my first big speaking thing. And then 2 months after my relaunch, Inc.com came knocking and said, hey, we want to feature you as a top 8 podcast to follow in 2018.
Fantastic.
The weird thing is with this whole entire podcast thing, my family thinks I'm famous. People are like, oh my God, you're doing all this crazy stuff. But I'm just a dude in Reading, Pennsylvania that's having conversation, right? And so for me, I still don't feel like I've made it, or I still don't feel like it's clicked. Cool shit's happening. I'm working with really cool people, but it just hasn't really clicked for me. And I think a lot of that is just kind of how I was raised and kind of what I've been through, to not ever really kind of settle for what is happening around me, because I realized tomorrow it could all go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're getting paid to speak, basically it's an awesome gig. That's basically what it comes down to. and I know you mean it's kind of like, well, who the fuck are we? We just go grocery shopping and just shit but it's good fun. It's good fun.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, by the way. I live a normal life. I do weird stuff. I'm a weird guy. Like the fact that anybody tunes into my podcast week after week is mind blowing to me, and I'm humbled by that.
Yeah, we were just saying, without technology that's being created, we couldn't do the shit that we do every day, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we pick on our podcast, just so you know, we pick a business that we like to put up there and say, hey, this is cool shit. And actually, we also like to pick a business that we say, hey, this is really terrible. We've used you. We didn't like you, right? Because we have no like, honestly.
We use you for free, but we don't like it.
Yeah, if you're going to pay it. No. So it comes down to this. We talked about Zoom. So I'm assuming I've seen you around on the podcast and your channels. You use stuff like this. Do you use Zoom as something that you use every day?
I don't. I use Skype. So I use Skype, and I use an app that I think I paid like $20 for. I think it's like somebody just told me it's $40 now. It's called Ecamm.
Oh yeah,
that's how I record my show. I just found that it's a better sound quality for me, at least on the back end. But I've used Zoom for like group calls and masterminds and stuff like that. I like it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, dude, 10 years ago, this would cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds, yeah.
Definitely. It's mental how much there's now a demand for it, so it's so cheap. I mean, for you guys in the States, I think it's like $15 for Zoom or whatever. In Australia, it's bumped up like $40 or $50. So I was like, yeah, I'm not paying for that. But
because you're so far away, they got to send that connection.
Yeah. So this is Rob's account, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Rob was like, look, because on the free account, I think you get like 20-minute recordings, and I've done a few podcast episodes on here, but I was like, just in case it cuts out midway, we'll just not risk it.
Yeah, tell him about your. So he had this. Rossi's pretty famous over there, and he's got like his coach.
I have to laugh at that. I'm sorry, Rob's talking me up too much.
Yeah, so he's got his thing going on, right? And so it's like, dude, I got this webinar. I got people coming in. I'm like, dude, it's so awesome. Yeah, I was just wondering, can I use your Zoom account? $15, man. Come on.
Oh, fuck.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I was doing it, and it just the whole time at the bottom it just said Rob Ty. And I was like, yeah, look, this is a free sales training. I'm not spending like $50 for you guys. If you buy my shit, I'll invest. But until then.
That's right. That's absolutely right, man. And webinars are a funny thing too. Like the whole online space is very, very bizarre. I do one-on-one podcast coaching, and I produce other people's podcasts. That's how I make my money. But the online space of people like doing these online courses and stuff like that, it's crazy, right? So like I learned how to podcast from an online course, but I don't like online courses because for me as the mentor and the person who's teaching people, I'm very much like, I want to make sure that I'm adding value, right? Yeah, and I can create an online course and be like, cool, I've added value. I know that for a fact, but I like to see it go through. So I like the one-on-one interaction or the one-on-group interaction to make sure that like these people are leveling up. Because look, podcasting is not for everybody. And if I sold a course and said, hey, you should start a podcast. This is how you start a podcast. Buy it now for $59. I guarantee you a ton of people will buy it, right? But then all these crap podcasts are going to come out, and it's gonna make me look bad because they're going to link it back to me. Yeah, Justin taught me how to do this. No thanks. I'd much rather do the one-on-one thing and make sure that these things are working out in the long run for sure.
The history of podcast is interesting because I mean I'm 34 years old, and I grew up like 1999 was my favorite year because I ended school, and the 2000s, and that's when Apple came out, like started coming out in 2007. But when did the first podcast come? Who did that? Like, I don't even know. Is there like a history of podcasts, like thing we could listen to? Like, who's the original creator of a podcast here?
Man, why? These are the kind of questions like in my podcast. I'll then ask the audience when they watch live to Google this shit for us. But I mean, Rob, I mean, yeah.
I actually so I don't have that answer for you.
Sorry, Rob.
I'm not Google, but I will say this: podcasting is a very interesting space. It has an interesting kind of history, like you said. I know, like it started to grow about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 7-8 years ago, and then nosedive, and like. Nobody was listening. There were a couple of like people that we would all call probably nerds at this point that were still kind of hanging out in the space. And then probably about 3 years ago or so, it had this resurgence, right? And in 2015, I think it was like something like 17% of Americans listen to podcasts on a regular basis. Last year, 27% of Americans listen to podcasts on a regular basis. So it's it's growing astronomically because we're getting busier and busier as human beings. And so what's happening is that people are trying to consume content while they're on the go because they don't have time to sit down and read a book. They don't have time to sit down and watch video. I mean, even Netflix caters to this. Like Netflix is actually a big reason why podcasting is a big thing, because they've given you the opportunity to spend one day or one afternoon to binge watch a whole entire show the day it comes out.
Right.
So we no longer have to dedicate the same multiple hours a week to this one show. We can just knock it out, and then we go about our day for the next 6 months until the show comes out again, or however long year, right? And so what are we going to do in that time? Podcasting is filling a void that will continue to get more and more available to people, just because, I mean, cell phones, right? So like you have cell phones and people are like, what do I do with this thing other than Google stuff? Like who started the first podcast?
Yeah.
Other than that,
I'm going to have random questions like that for you. But I can so like the other day I was on my phone and I was working. I use my phone as like for one business and I use my iPad for another to kind of segregate. And I wanted to make a phone call and I was looking for my phone for like 10 minutes and I realized I was on it, like utilizing it. It was insane, like the most ridiculous thing. Like how if anyone was around me, I think I'm crazy, but this is how technology is working. And so, yeah, I don't mean to throw random questions like that. It was just kind of me thinking like, talking about this and what you do for a living and how do you have those accolades that come to you. I'm thinking, how do you get there? And like, if someone didn't create this, that's how my mind works. We couldn't do what you were doing today.
Yeah.
So my question for you would be is, okay, so you have these accolades and you said it's just recently you've started to kind of go up there, but do you now know what you want to be? Like, what's your end game here now? I'm sure you don't want to go back and work at a factory or retail. I'm assuming you have this massive plan for yourself. What is that? Like, take us through your future journey that you're looking for.
I will cut in there real quick because I did actually manually Google this, so I want the efforts to be done.
Clearly somebody's not paying attention to this conversation.
No, yeah.
So basically, it's called audio blogging back in the 1980s. So that's when it started. So just, yeah,
nice.
We now know this.
I love it. I love that. So I appreciate that. So, to answer your question, like, where do I see myself going? Look, here's the thing. I started the podcast because I wanted to let people know that it doesn't matter where you come from and it doesn't matter where you are today. What you can do going forward is all that matters, right? Like making the next right step. So where I want to be is wherever the people are that need to hear that message. Right now it's podcasting. I don't know what's next, right? And so whether that's speaking on a stage or continuing to podcast or helping other people launch podcasts and spread a positive message, I think that's kind of where I'm always going to be. I am not somebody who has a grand vision of being the greatest podcaster or speaking to tens of millions of people on a stage or whatever the case may be. I don't have that grand vision. Like, all I know is right now. Everything could end tomorrow, right? So all that matters is right now and the step that I'm choosing to take right now. And right now it's podcasting and helping other people launch on this incredible platform that has done a lot of amazing things for me. And I want to teach people how to do that as well. And how do you use this platform to get whatever it is you need? Like I have a client who all he did was record 12 episodes. That's all he's ever going to record. And he takes that and uses a top of funnel sales approach to get new clients.
Yeah, nice.
That's it, right? So this platform can be used for so many different things. And my goal is to help people get to whatever next level it is in their life, whether that's a spiritual awakening, whether that's how to be better in a relationship or get physically fit or grow your business, right? And so my podcast kind of runs the gamut on all those topics because happiness doesn't live in one thing. Happiness isn't money. Happiness isn't a relationship. Happiness isn't health. Happiness is an overall joy of life. So where I see myself in the future is just being really effing happy. Just like I am today, right? So when I'm I want to be the happiest 70-year-old of all time.
I love how we've dropped the F-bomb like 1,200 times and he's like, effing happy.
I didn't even realize what I was saying. I was muting myself.
Well, you swear on the big box.
Yeah.
I did say shit earlier, so you got that.
And yet, prior to recording, actually, I'm not going to bring it up because it'll be the 6th time we brought it up. So
I've already heard about your pubes, so we don't need to hear
shit. I was hoping we wouldn't actually get this. I was hoping it would come out.
Yeah.
this episode now, just so you know, the pube conversation that we mentioned 5 times was in the episode that you're in. So now we're looking at 6. So we're trying to keep
it was a combination of episode 1 and 2. So we really, Rob, we got to stop. We got to make different segues and just.
Yeah. So I'm curious here. Who's your favorite? Like, who's your client that you basically want to meet with and talk to? Who's your ideal client for people out there that are listening that stumble upon this to find you? If they want to reach out to you, how do you know it's a fit? Like, who do you need to help?
Yeah, man. So, I say to everybody, like, hey, look, if you're ready to start a podcast and you're not quite there, reach out to me and let's have a conversation and see if it makes sense. I'm not afraid to tell somebody, no, you shouldn't have a podcast. I've done it over and over and over again. But yeah, reach out and just see if that's something that your message kind of correlates. Like, I won't work with people whose messages don't make sense. Like, there's a lot of people that come to me and say, they're like, I want to do a podcast because I like purple potatoes. And so I'm going to do this show about it. And I'm like, I'm not going to be a part of that because that's not going anywhere, right? So if you have a real vision of what you want to do with your show, what you want to do with your podcast, reach out. Let's have a conversation. That part's free, right? We'll have a 20-minute conversation and see if it makes sense. So that's one ideal client. Let me help you build that platform. And then other people are, somebody goes, I'm too busy to do the back end work. I would love to help people like that, right? Cool. And then also people who want to grow their audience. And so this is kind of a cool little, I'll try and make it as short as possible. I know we only have X amount of time. But I have a client who, I started coaching him. I don't do any of the back end work for him. And I started coaching him and he had a podcast that the name didn't make sense. Like, his joke is like, my mom, my wife, and my 2 dogs were my only listeners. And within 3 months of working together, we rebranded, reworked the show, blah, blah, blah. And he went from like probably 30, 40 downloads an episode. He's now a top ranked podcast in his category. So I want to be able to help people kind of use this platform to get to where they want to go. I don't have much more room just for one-on-one coaching clients, but hey, look, if you have a great message and it's just not getting out there, I want to help people do that too.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, well, here's a question for you. Let's just say you've got roughly 60 episodes and only a few thousand downloads in total. What would you recommend for that particular person to perhaps monetize or spread their message further?
Yeah, so you're talking about monetizing on probably 100 something listens an episode, right? That probably isn't going to happen, right? So that probably isn't
absolutely.
Gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to get more listeners for sure. I think there's
so
like
you have to get more listeners. And the thing about podcasting is this: you have to go where other podcast listeners are in order to engage their audience. Because like, you've probably drained your audience dry. Like, whoever's listening now is part of your clan already. They're not tuning in out of nowhere. So you want to be able to align yourself, become a guest on other shows, share your story, make sure your story is compelling enough that people want to tune into whatever it is you're doing. So you want to do that. And then you also, if you're a good writer, which I am not, but if you're a good writer, guest blog on blogs, because I've found that podcast listeners are readers. They're not YouTube watchers. They're not TV watchers. They're podcast listeners and blog readers. And so that's kind of where you want to live, and that's where you want to deliver your content into other people's audiences, so you're attracting them into what you're doing. And just be real, be giving, give as much as you possibly can, and people will come.
Makes sense. Yeah, good. Because I'm a big fan of leveraging other people's audiences. So, every time we have guests on or I have guests on my show, it's always a case of, here's your episode to share out. So I'm a big fan of doing that.
Yeah. How often do they share it out?
Well, I try to get every guest to do it, but it's whether or not they do take that up or not. But it's like, here's your episode. So it's always a positive if they can.
Yeah, for sure. There's a way to get them to share it too. I can share that with you off the record.
Awesome. You're a champion. Thanks, Justin.
Off the record, we're going to... So here's a question for you. Do you help people who... I see a lot of people who don't have the self-confidence to do live videos, and essentially that they have a great message to tell, but they don't know, that they're too shy to do it. So do you help them build self-confidence too? Is that something that you take on, or do you kind of know how to do that? Not me.
I've definitely had clients in the beginning that weren't super comfortable. They just knew they wanted to do it. And I just think over time, that happens, right? So like them talking to me and coaching with me, it makes them more comfortable. I don't think I don't focus on, I don't know the secret to that. I mean, I used to be a super shy kid in school. I was a terrible student. Like I jokingly say from the stage that if there was a senior superlative for least likely to succeed, that would be me. And so I kind of coach people through the idea that, like, dude, like, just be yourself. Like, you have to confidently be yourself in everything you do. I talk way too fast to be a podcaster. I stutter way too much to be a podcaster. And I use the wrong words way too often to be a podcaster, but I'm a podcaster.
Whatever works. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It's just whatever fits. Like for people that are trying to do videos, always recommend, if they're trying to do Facebook Lives for their business and grow their business that way, just practice offline. Just, whether it's recording yourself via, audio or visual, and just record it and delete it and then practice.
Yeah.
And then get more comfortable. And then after you've done it a few times, you may then be more comfortable enough to, share it with your friends and get feedback, or share it with family members, things like that. So it's just getting out there. Man, I know exactly what you mean. Like, I swear too much. And yeah, it's right. I was talking to Rob the other week, and he's like, yeah, look, so you could probably get sponsorship for your show when you got a few more listeners, but you swear too much.
I said, honest opinion is that you got a great show, and people come on with great guests, and he's doing these, he's knocking them out daily, and he's putting time aside. And I go, well, you're going to get the business user go, hey, I may want to sponsor this. They go listen to it and go, I don't want to be assigned to this. So hey, that's a good question. It's a great segue here. If would you recommend, like, we don't give a shit because we're on a Starboard or a network that they allow this, and it's not going to matter for us at all. And actually, the people that I have interested in sponsorship don't really give a shit about it, as long as we got the great message, which is us being us, right? But if someone was to come to you and say, hey, I'm gonna swear versus I'm not gonna swear, what's your recommendation on that as someone who's doing a podcast who swears?
If you swear when you talk in real life, swear on your show. Like, that's just how it is. I mean, and I think Gary, if you guys know who Gary Vee is, but if you follow Gary Vee at all, that guy curses more than anybody I've ever seen in my life, other than one guy. There's a guy, he's behind me somewhere, Fabio Viviani. He's become a great friend of mine. I work with him on a couple of projects, but that guy says the F word more than anybody, but it works for him. Yeah, right. Nice. So, and he doesn't have a problem getting sponsors. His restaurants are worth over $100 million a year. It's just how it is. I mean, he was on I set him up with one of my clients, and he was a guest on his show, and it was a 34-minute interview. He said the F word 28 times. Fact.
I love it.
Yeah. My client texted me. He goes, over under 12 F words. And I go, over, hands down. And he doubled it. So yeah, it was pretty funny, but yeah, man, look, here's the deal. If you curse in real life, curse on your show. Be authentic. Don't try and be something that you're not. There's a reason that you want to be an entrepreneur, and that's so for somebody else not to tell you what to do, right? So go be yourself, and what needs to happen will happen. Like, dude, if I curse, which I do, it's not excessive for me, and I don't mind cursing, but like, I curse. And if somebody goes, oh, I want to pull my sponsorship because you said the F word, fuck you. Like, I'm not like, okay, cool, go ahead. Like, you're not sponsoring me then, right? You're sponsoring this concept that's not me, and I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a right fit. It's 100%. Well said.
See, Gary Vee is a major. So, like, I have two influencers. Mark Zuckerberg. There's a reason for it because I've been doing this for 6 years. So 6 years, I have great businesses. I've done very well. I invest in businesses. I help startups grow. I've helped over 77 startups become something. So I've got a pretty good record, right? So I sit there and go, I've been influencing for quite a while, but I don't call myself an influencer. I fucking hate that word. I say, go find an influencer and find that person. And I think I even mentioned it on this show. But bottom line is, I used to say, you do you all the time. You do you. It used to be my saying. And then all of a sudden, like, Gary Vee comes out with you do you, and then has like the Gary Vee. And then I said it to someone, and some guy goes, oh yeah, you just copying Gary now. I'm like, fuck you. He took my saying. I know for it. He couldn't even saying it. Now he's like, he has like a guy like D-Rock or douchebag, whatever his name is, following him around with like a camera like all the time. And then he posts that shit. Everything he says, everyone's gonna say he's the first one to say it.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's very difficult to have. Every time you try and do something or follow something, everyone's going to pull you back to that. But Gary Vee is my influencer because he does some amazing shit. He's helping.
The guy's top notch. Like, he's actually phenomenal. It's funny you mention that because I guess there's two people that I would look up to in a business sense. Gary Vee being one, and then funnily enough, Curtis Jackson or 50 Cent is my other one.
Didn't he file bankruptcy?
He did, but that was just because he had to pay some chick because he released a porn video of her without her permission, and so he filed for bankruptcy to try and get out of paying her.
So you learn not to do that in your future. Don't release that porn video.
they looked into it and they're like, yeah, so you're not bankrupt at all. Like, you need to pay. It's like, son of a bitch.
Guys, every episode we'd like to drop some value, and that's it. Do not release a porno tape, and try not to get sued. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome, America.
Get it in writing that it's your property, and then release.
Like the Kardashians. I don't know how he got out there.
She gets money for that. Like, Kim Kardashian still gets money for that porn video she did with, is it Ray J or whatever? That other dude? Yeah, basically.
She gets my money.
She still gets royalties.
Yep. She still gets money.
How did we go from talking about doing ourselves to porn?
Well, that's because you do yourself in porn.
Other people get done.
That's nice segue.
Well, Rob, you said that you've been married for a long time now. I mean, and for 6 years you've been doing you, so we know what married life is all about.
That's what married life is all about. I do me every single day, and she does me once a month. That's how it works.
That's the best.
Man, you know what? I know for a fact we could talk for hours. What if there's one thing that you like to, we always just talk about Gary Vee. There's one thing he likes to say every day, and that's you could fuck up at 30 and you still have 10 more years to get it right. That's like his thing, and I love that. I'm 34. I fucked up a couple of businesses. I got 6 that actually, 3 of them my own, 3 of them I've invested in that I love and that are growing every day. But is there one thing that you sit down in front of someone new? Is there something that you like to say every day that makes sense? It just leaves them with this wow factor that you can teach.
I had an idea too. You said if it leaves them with a wow factor. I don't know if it leaves them with a wow factor.
Sorry.
But the thing is this, like I was saying earlier, like all we have control over is right now. So make the next right step. And if you do that every single day, this whole thing we call life is going to work out pretty well. Right. And yeah, look, we're going to mess up sometimes. Right. But if we have a choice right now between A and B, and A is the right step and B is not, just do A. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, man. So, Justin, I guess for everyone that is listening, how do they get in contact with you for you to be able to help them with their podcasts or, trying to get them on the right track, things like that?
Yeah. So if they can just email me if they want, justin@growthnowmovement.com, or they can check out my website, growthnowmovement.com. If they are interested in like the podcast production side of things, it's beginpodcastingnow.com. And of course, all the social media stuff. If you search Growth Now Movement, it pops up. And so anyway, like I'm all over. Like I think that's kind of how we all are, right? And so, but yeah, I mean, social media is pretty easy. So if they want to reach out through there, they can do that too.
Cool. Yeah, I love how social media is. It is so easy. I mean, from a privacy perspective, like things are fucked, but like to get in contact for businesses, it's so easy. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. I know, again, like I said, I could talk to you for ages. Guys, hit him up on Facebook. Check out his podcast. You're going to be writing a book. So everyone seems to be want to write a book one day. Are you going to be writing a book?
I started one and then scrapped it. I actually probably had like 2 more chapters to write and I scrapped it. But I'm not opposed to it. People keep asking me when you're writing your book. I have an idea, but I haven't even started yet.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. I've written a book too, and I just don't want to send it out because like I read it, oh, this is a really piece of shit, isn't it? There's no value here. But hopefully you get value from Entrepreneur Street. It's been wonderful having you on. Thanks again. And then guys, check him out. I know we will be. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, Justin, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're humbled that you would join us on the show. And we look forward to sharing your message.
Guys, thank you so much. This is actually a ton of fun. I wish you all the best going forward, and I'm glad I can be a part of it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.